right, guys. So we are going to do a hexagonal thinking activity as our final activity with Macbeth. And this is going to count for a test grade. So I want to make sure that you know how to do it. The first thing for you to understand are just the basic instructions. And so the main idea is that you are going to form connections between the characters, some events, and some of the themes of the play. And so you really need to think critically here, and you need to think about how these different people or items or themes are connected in the play. And so what you see on this second slide is a group of hexagons. And each side of the hexagons represents a connection that can be formed. This is your word bank. And so you have some objects and events, you have several themes, and you have several characters. You need to use 10 of the things minimum. So you have a few extra hexagons up here that you may or may not use. Then you will we'll get into the mechanics of it in a minute. But each one of these, like you can see in the example down here, which is science-y, but you get the idea, you will move the hexagons around and form connections between them. So you will look at which characters might connect to an item or event. And those connections can be on several levels. It might have been something that they were involved in. It might have been something that affected them. It might be that they are characters who had a relationship of some kind. You will be deciding what connections to form. That's step one. Then you will explain your connections. So once you've got all of your characters or events laid out in some kind of structure, which they don't have to all connect, you could have like two separate hex grids if you want to, that's fine. Then you're going to pick 3 of those connections to explain, and you're going to label them with arrows like they've done here. And then you are going to write about why you chose to connect those 2 or 3 items. Try to go with like a place where 3 different things intersect so that you have more to talk about, really, because you are going to have to write about it. And so there are some questions down here to kind of guide what you will write. Why did you choose to connect them? What is the deeper meaning? How does the character embody theme? Or what plot points connect these characters? Are there quotes or scenes that this connection includes? And overall, you're trying to think about a deeper meaning to the play because this is an assessment. So you want to go a little bit beyond surface level. And that will be part of the grade. So if you are doing this digitally, then you're going to use this PowerPoint that you open on Kidim to create your hexagonal thinking. The slide here is completely able to be manipulated. So you will take the people and you will drag them onto the hexagons. And that way you can choose your 10 people. And then the hexagons themselves can also move. So you can drag those around to go wherever you want them to be. And you will drag them to line up with each other. You can move the hexagons first and then add the names if you want to. Or if you want to be able to move them together, you can use this little trick where you highlight both the hexagon and the name. And then when you right click, it will give you a menu. And you can choose to group the shapes. And now whenever you move it, oh, well, that didn't work, did it? They're supposed to move together. There we go. Now it's doing it. And that way you can put the names on the hexagons and then move them around. Play with a couple of different scenarios, a couple of different ways to connect them before you settle on the connection that moves well. It's almost like playing Connect 4 with the characters and events and that sort of thing. And so you'll do that with 10 of these. You do not have to use all of the words in the word bank. And there are quite a few extra hexagons on this digital edition, so you can delete a few of those. And then once you've got all of your hexagons lined up the way you want them, then you're going to use these arrows down here to move them. And I've already grouped these so they can move. And you're going to label number 1, number 2, number 3. Which ones of these are you going to be talking about? And then once you have labeled your 1, 2, and 3, you will go to the third slide and talk about them. And so you can type those connections right here on the slide and explain why you chose those 3 connections. This is for a test grade, so make sure you write a good amount. Like, you can't just say connection 1, Lady Macbeth was married to Macbeth, and that's why I chose that. That is not enough to get you a good grade on a test. So make sure that you really consider and write a paragraph for each one of these, okay? It will be a little tricky getting used to moving these around, but it is not impossible. You just have to be patient. You also have the option of printing out the paper version and just literally using scissors and glue, which is what we will be doing in the classroom. But this is it's pretty user-friendly once you start playing with it just a little bit. So good luck with that. Make sure that you form some deep connections and explain them well.